Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to live Youth Work Conversations. There's a little red box in my top left-hand corner that tells me that we're live on Facebook. And after a morning of conquering the technicalities of live streaming, with zero knowledge between myself and the lovely Jonathan Masters to my left, or maybe to my right, or maybe even below, we think we've done it. So anyway, if we're here, brilliant. If we're not, we'll record it and post it up later. Thanks for joining us. It's a bit of a grim afternoon here, but I hope everyone is doing really well. And this afternoon, we are joined by three glorious people to talk about a really important next couple of weeks as young people begin to find out their results for both GCSE, A-levels, and today, in fact, for those who've taken exams in Scotland. So I'm going to ask folk to introduce themselves. First of all, it's perfection that we should be privileged enough to have Daniel with us, but what a perfect surname for this opportunity. Daniel, introduce us to yourself, good sir, please.
Yeah, hello guys, my name's Daniel Guest. I am your guest for today. Yes. And I am a ex-year 13 now. That's crazy. I am a former pupil of Canslade School, for those of you who are in the Bolton and connected areas. I've been a Christian all my life, and this is a really strange time for us as young people. So the great Susie asked me to be here, and it's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you, Daniel. Thank you so much. Liz.
I'm Liz. I am the Children, Young People and Families Team Leader from the Diocese of Leeds, and hoping that my internet will work this time.
Doing good so far, Liz. Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us at quite late notice, so thank you. Brilliant. And finally, my partner in crime today, Johnny Masters.
Hi, I'm Johnny Masters. I'm the Youth, Children and Families Missioner for the Diocese of Chester, covering from the Wirral down to Crewe. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and hear about what people are thinking and feeling at the moment and in the future.
Great, thank you. And I'm Susie Mapledorham, and I'm the Youth Officer for the Diocese of Manchester. You're absolutely right, Daniel. These are strange times, particularly for many people represented in Manchester Diocese and Leeds as well, to some extent, and bits of Chester too. And just making sense of each week as it comes towards us. And it's going to be good to have a conversation today and draw on some experience and thoughts, particularly from you, Daniel, around kind of exams and questions. But as normal, we will start with a cheeky icebreaker, as we normally do. And today's question has a culinary theme. So the question today is, tell us about a culinary disaster, something that maybe you attempted to make or were part of making, or maybe even something that you tasted that you had great intentions for, but maybe didn't quite turn out as you'd hoped. I would like to move over to Chester, Johnny, for your, tell us your story. It's a good one.
Well, cooking is not really my strong point, if I'm honest. And I generally, if I am cooking, I like things to be ready. But one time when I was at uni, I used to go to uni for 2 days every 2 weeks. And on the evening of that first day, we had to get our own food ready. We used to go to Sainsbury's, other supermarkets are available, and different bits and pieces. And I decided one week that I would get a garlic pizza bread. You know those round garlic bread things that are absolutely delicious when you cook them correctly. In one of the little common rooms there, and I just completely forgot that I put it in the oven. It needed 10 minutes. Half an hour later, I suddenly realised that it's and I was like, oh no, I've forgotten it. But because that's literally all I had, and I felt like I didn't want to waste it, I spent the next half an hour munching my way through this crunchy garlic bread.
Yuck.
You can't waste something that you paid for.
Amazing. Good man. Right, Johnny, you can choose who goes next.
Oh, Liz can go next.
Okay, I was thinking, because I quite like cooking, but I didn't used to, and mine goes back to school. And I was never very good in sort of the cookery classes. But I had an amazing parents' evening where my parents went and I was there, and the conversation went along the lines of, I really don't know why Elizabeth chose to do this. Note the use of Elizabeth. And my mum looked a bit sort of perplexed. She said, because clearly it is quite out of her capabilities. And this woman went on for about 10 minutes. And we said eventually, what did she make? And she said, she tried to make profiteroles. And I was like, I've never made profiteroles. You've got the wrong child. So they spent sort of like 10 minutes having a go at my mum and dad for sending me in with the ingredients for profiteroles. And I'm like, I've never done that. So then the teacher had to apologise. I've made them once.
Okay.
I've made them once, not particularly well.
Okay.
And I was an adult, but I was like, I was really hopeless at cookery at school.
They look quite tricky.
So your teacher was right about it being out of your capabilities at the end of the day.
My capabilities. I had never chosen to do it, but she thought I'd done it. And I was like, no, I really haven't. I have not made those. But I did. My husband, his dad was a chef, so I, for lots of reasons, I married well. But he's really
amazing.
Good.
Brilliant. Thank you, Liz. Right, you choose who's next.
I'm going to ask Daniel.
Right.
So I've got. I couldn't choose. I got a couple that they're both quite short, but one of them was over lockdown. I've done what everyone in the nation seemed to have done at some point, and that was I tried my hand at baking. Now I'm quite happy to say that nearly everything that I've done has gone pretty well.
Great.
But apart from like just the mess, because I'm a very messy person in general, but apart from that, everything has tasted and looked reasonably all right. Apart from when I tried to make brownies for the first time. I have since made brownies that have been delicious, but in my first attempt, my girlfriend, she's a big baker, she loves baking, and she sent me this recipe over, and the recipe was labeled the best brownies ever. So I was like, right, okay. So I started to make them, and I followed the recipe to the gram of each ingredient. Put it all together. I followed the instructions to the letter, but I put it into the oven at the right temperature for the right amount of time, and I it came out, and I was like, it's not set. And then my mum was like, just leave it out on the wiring rack for a while. It normally sets up after it's cooled down for a bit. It's still cooking on the inside. I was like, all right, okay. She's nearly 50. She is 50 now. But she was like, she's had years of experience. I'll let her have this one. So I put it on the side, and I came back after 20 minutes. It was still a bit warm. So I was like, all right, I'll let it go. It just never set. It was cooked, but it just wasn't a brownie. So we pulled it out with the greaseproof paper, and we couldn't cut it because it was like jelly. It was like gooey. It still tasted nice, but we were like it was messy. It was messier than making it, actually. The other time that's not gone too well for me was like you were saying, Liz, at school. We're making stir fry, which is probably one of the easiest dishes you can make. You just throw it all in and fry it all up. But I actually ended up burning.
Oh no!
So you can it's still scarred to this day.
Wow.
And not only that, but because it was like a class thing, and everyone was frying up. The room got really humid, and I ended up having to go to the nurse because I'd passed out.
Oh.
So yeah, so those are just two experiences where it's just
amazing.
Right.
I'm feeling quite comfortable now about sharing my story because I don't feel so alone. The first one, probably the worst culinary error I made was when someone came around to measure my flat when I lived in Woking, and I asked him if, was hospitable, asked me if he wanted a cup of tea, and I inadvertently put 3 spoons of salt in his tea rather than 3 spoons of sugar, and his face as he drank it, I was perplexed as to why he was convinced that I had put salt in his tea, and sure enough I had, because I tried it. But I think that the worst culinary experience was when I was at university, and I'm a big fan of banoffee pie. I'm not normally a pudding person, but I do like banoffee pie, and it's that bit in the middle, the caramel bit, that I love the most. And I read somewhere that the way to make it is to boil a tin of condensed milk. So I put it in this saucepan and boiled it away, but there were no instructions as to how long you boil it for. Well, let me tell you, boil it, but stop boiling it before the tin explodes, wrecks the saucepan, and you're covered in sticky condensed milk across a complete university kitchen. Always best to maybe stop boiling your condensed milk before then. I never made another banoffee pie since. I just bought them out of a packet, I'm ashamed to say. But anyway.
Are you meant to leave it in the tin while you're boiling it?
Apparently so, but maybe I was meant to pierce it with holes.
Someone's having a laugh.
No, it was dead true. It was honest truth. Maybe someone just kind of wanted me to have an exploding tin of condensed milk. Anyway, there we are. Great stories. Thank you very much, folks. Before I hand over to Johnny, who's going to lead the conversation today, let's pray together for ourselves and what we're going to be talking about. Heavenly Father, thank you for your presence with us today. And we think very especially of the young people who'll be receiving exam results today and next week and the week after. We pray that you would place supportive networks and folk around them as they navigate these next few weeks. Guide us in how we can support them and remind us, Lord, of your peace for our lives, especially when things seem uncertain, which can happen over these days of that results come out. Be with us in this conversation. We pray for your wisdom and insight and for some real ideas of how we might support our young people during this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Susie.
Pleasure.
Looks like she's got some interesting stories to tell about cooking as well. So put your stories in the comments, please, because we would love to hear your culinary disasters, mishaps, and joys. And in a way, we're shoehorned in results because our cooking results sort of relate to our academic results. Where we've had poor results of cooking, we would like great results of academia prowess, whatever that looks like for each individual. So we've got, as usual, we're framing our conversation around 4 questions. And the first question I'd like to ask, I'll just put it out there. I think maybe we'll go to Daniel first on this, actually. How do young people, in this case you, feel at the moment about getting your results in the next few weeks?
So yeah, for me personally, it's really weird because if I look back on my GCSE results, it was about this time I was on holiday, and literally, I'll tell you a little story about this actually. My mate, whilst I was doing the exams, just jokingly, I have really bad handwriting. That just needs to be said right now. And my mate jokingly, whilst we were doing them, was just like, I'm not sure how your examiners are going to read your tests with that handwriting, Daniel. And at the time I was like, yeah, that's a very fair point. But then about a week before my GCSE results, I was like, wait, what happens if they actually can't read them? And I had this like major meltdown while I was on holiday, but no one knew about it. It was done in private. Until like I just brought it back in. And the reason I've told you that is because I imagine that was me when I'd sat my exams and I knew that I'd put the best of my ability into them. Whereas this is a completely different situation that we've worked, but we haven't had that finalization of like put everything into this, it's all or nothing type of moment for our exams. So we're being marked on something that like almost feels like incomplete, if you get what I'm trying to say. And that's for me personally why it feels really weird to think that in this time next week I'll be 2 days away from picking up results almost like, and I know this isn't right, but and I know that from the people that I've spoken to, it almost feels like we don't deserve in a way, not that we haven't worked for them, but we haven't had that that moment where we're like, right, let's put everything we've learnt together onto these papers. So it's almost
do you have coursework now, or is there no
it depends on the subject. So for me personally, I had computer science, maths and performing arts. Now my performing arts was completely coursework, no exams at all. But it depending on what subject you were doing, like my maths was all exams, and computer science was meant to be a bit of both, but because of the lockdown, we couldn't complete our coursework, so it got scrapped in the end. So it depends on which subject you're doing, depends on whether your entire grade is being based on exams that you haven't done, if you get what I'm trying to say.
No, am I right in thinking there's no AS levels now? So it's not like you've done 1 year and a half. This is your 2 years.
Yeah, no. You do the AS content, but you don't take a formal like AS exam sort type thing.
Wow, that's huge then, because your 2 years of work culminating in that moment, and you're not like, you haven't had that moment to say I put everything into this. Because some people would have been coasting through those first couple of years for a lot of that time, expecting that they could pull it out of the bag at the last minute.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that, because I won't lie. Like if I look back at my A-level times, if I knew that this situation was coming, I'd say I'd been working at for different reasons, like not making excuses, but at the start of the year I had some medical reasons why I couldn't fully work to the best of my ability, but I'd say I was working at 85-90% throughout the year. And if I'd have known that, I would have given 110. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like you have that sense of almost like regret that you didn't fully commit yourself, because you were told from day one that you will sit exams at the end of it. So I always had that, and I worked better on exams. My GCSE grades were. Every exam that I took was either hit my target grade or exceeded it. Most notably, I was predicted like 3 grades lower in one of my subjects. So exams are a good thing for me. So to not have them is almost like a hindrance in a way.
Yeah, that's tough. What about Susie and Liz? Do you know any young people, and how are they feeling at the moment?
Yeah, I do. I probably won't say who it is, because I want to kind of, I want to protect their, what they're going through at the moment. But I know a young man who is in the same situation as Daniel, who'll be collecting his A-level results next week, and his grades, like for many young people, have implications of what happens next. I mean, for some, I know Daniel's may talk a bit later, so I won't take away the thunder of what the next year holds for Daniel, because it's really exciting. But for others, it will have an impact on university. And I think because there's an uncertainty of what grades they will get, and because they may think, well, for example, they may need 3 Bs and an A to get somewhere, and they're really stressed out because the subject they need the A in, they got a B in their mocks. And I think there is all kinds of concern about what grade will be predicted for them and what will be taken into account. And this particular young man that I know, I've known him all his life, is obviously anxious about that, but also anxious about the implications, if he doesn't get the space that he wants in the university that he's kind of got his kind of mind set on. He's been there, he's felt it, he's been around the place, he knows about the course he's doing. If the grades aren't what he needs, then that will create a change for him as well. So it's the implications, I think, for him are quite huge, because this is another massive transitional part of a young person's life, moving from sixth form to the next adventure, whether that's university, whether that's apprenticeships, whether that's year outs, whatever it is. But I think certainly from listening to him, it's the sense of I can't do anything to affect this than what I've already done. And it feels like, in a sense, that someone else can decide what grade I get, rather than me putting my heart and soul into sitting those exams. And I know that's not the view of every young person. I've talked to others who were quite pleased not to have an exam, because they didn't feel that exams were where they flourished. They felt they flourished in their coursework, and everyone's different. Like Daniel was different to that. But for this particular young man, it does have some pretty huge kind of life-shifting implications, really.
And they can do. And part of that, I think, part of the worry of that is, do your teachers like you or not? Because an examiner doesn't know you; they just mark you on the C. Whereas teachers won't be able to help, but say, well, they know how hard you work, and they will want to take that into account because they will know, they've seen what you do in class, and they can see that, and that will give them an impression and make an impact. Whereas some people might not have, as I said earlier, might have coasted and then really worked hard. People, me being one of them, probably worked really hard in class and then coasted through exams when I was at school. And it's just how you how teachers perceive that. And what that's
Absolutely.
It's funny. It's funny you should say that, because I know a lot of people who like, I know from my experience, and I don't know whether it was different when you guys were my age, but sometimes your relationship with your teacher can really have an effect on how difficult or how successful you are in a subject. I know my brother really struggled with history when he was doing his GCSEs, but as soon as he moved class, he excelled. It wasn't that he wasn't trying; it's just her way of teaching didn't suit him. Like, so, and I know fully well that teachers will want to be as like impartial as possible, but we're all human. We all have like our thoughts, our emotions and stuff, and our opinions on people, like you were saying, Johnny. Like I know a lot of people just don't get on with teachers because of, for whatever reason, if that hinders them and it's not based on their actual academic prowess, is that the right word? I don't even know. But then I think that's really unjust, whatever the word is. Because it wouldn't be the same if an examiner marking them, because they get told this is wrong, this is right, or this is what they should be looking for, you know what I mean, depending on the subject that you're doing. They don't have that rapport that you'd have, good or bad rapport. They just got a piece of paper. It's not got a face to it. So that could work negatively or positively for you. For me, it's probably we did like most likely to for my year, for year 13, and I was voted most likely to be teacher's pet. So it's probably worked out better for me, because my teachers will probably more like me because of how I've been with them throughout the 2 years, or should I say year and a half, before he got caught. But it's just not the same. I know one of my best friends. He works really hard, but it just takes him a while to get things, and he hasn't had that time to fully get everything because it got cut off for him. So what looks like a bad grade, it's just him not fully understanding it, when I know I've seen it through 7 years I've been at my college, because I went to my sixth form at my college. I know that just give him the time and he'll get it eventually. I just think it's a really difficult situation. I don't know whether it's the right decision, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, what would you have done differently?
Me?
Yeah.
It's really difficult, because you don't want to halt people's progress. I think that's something that Boris said right at the beginning. Like, our progress won't be hindered by this situation. But I would. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what I would have done differently. But I think I would have. Tried to. Like, one idea that my school had was to socially distance students throughout the school, because they'll have the whole school to themselves. They could sit those exams like 2 meters apart with masks on, whatever you want to do, whatever is deemed safe at the time. I reckon you probably could sit those exams, but then you got to think about schools that's slightly smaller but still have the same sort of numbers of students. So I don't know. I haven't given it much thought. That's a question.
Sounds like a good idea to me, though.
Yeah.
It would have been an interesting idea to just keep those exam years in school and to be much more socially distant, but to keep them going on their courses. Liz, have you come across any young people, and how are they feeling at the moment?
I think they're more young people that are waiting for their GCSEs rather than the higher level ones, bit of a sense of loss, if that's the right sort of thing. There's a feeling it stopped abruptly. We worked for a bit and then we didn't need to work, and now somebody's going to decide for me. And echoing a bit of what Daniel said, there is no opportunity for the young person to actually do anything. From March, your ability to change the course of your life, if you like, in as much as we'll talk about other things that, you know, it's never the end of anything and there's always other options, but that was taken away from them. And I think it's really easy for people to dismiss that. And I think it's really interesting thinking about those young people that are about to go into year 11, how attitudes to them are already changing a little bit, in that nobody knows what's going to happen, but make the most of what you're doing in case coursework comes in. So they're in a slightly, although they don't know, they've got a little bit of an advantage in some ways. And I just think for this particular cohort of young people in year 11 and year 13, it would be very easy to just misunderstand just how difficult it is.
I had a Zoom meeting like this with a couple of my Easton on the Road people just a couple of weeks after it all went down. We were all put into lockdown, and I turned to my mate who's in year 12, and I said to him, I actually think they've got it harder than us, because we've only got one uncertainty, which is the results. They've got the uncertainty of, are we going to sit our exams? When are we going back to school or college? How are we going to be affected? Because I know that a lot of students are finding it hard to work from home, because they work better in that classroom environment. So a lot of people will have lost time on that. You've not got as much as you can Zoom or anything. You haven't got that direct contact with if you need it. Like email's great, but it's so much better if someone can sit down with you and work you through with someone who is professionally trained at that. There's only so much you can write down on an email or like express through a Zoom call. It's just not the same. So they're gonna have some real difficulties. I personally don't think a lot has been thought about the upcoming years that are coming into their exam years. I think that's something that definitely needs to be looked at.
Wasn't it announced this morning that they'll be able to drop some of their subject areas this morning? I heard on the news that history and English literature might be two of the subject areas that they can drop when they take their exams next year. But I think there is a lot of anxiety there. I know a few year 10s I've spoken to recently who are concerned about missing a term's worth of work, even though they have been working at home, and teachers have been brilliant at sending work back, and and I feel for teachers hugely. I think this is a deeply challenging time for them, and particularly those, I know someone who's had to grade people's GCSEs, and that's a huge pressure too. But there's a lot of concern around for year 10s and the year 12s as well, like you said, Daniel.
Yeah, I think going back to like the grading of exams as well, when you get an examiner, they have been to meeting upon meeting on standardizing like what is a grade A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on which grade you're going off. They've been to meeting upon meeting, like saying this is A level work slash a level 8 work, and this is a C grade or a 4 or 5 grade. Whereas you can't teach that to everyone in the time frame that we've had. We've got teachers who are teachers, but they've not had the same vigorous scrutinizing of like their marking. They've always just marked as they saw fit, which I'm not saying is wrong by anything, but people's opinions are different. Like somebody could say this is a grade 7 work, but somebody said no, that's easily a grade 8, 9, and I just think that's quite difficult, because you not only are you unsure what grade you're going to get, you don't know how your teacher's going to like take your work, because some teachers are lenient, some teachers are strict. Like I know that our teachers at Canon, they worked us hard to the bone, and they deliberately marked us lower than we were working at, because they wanted to not to scare us, but like make us work even that bit harder to push us from like our comfort zone to our top end. So some teachers won't have done that in other schools. So I just think yeah, you know, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Standardization thing, isn't it? It's standard when there are so many people involved. Yeah.
And schools work really hard on that, but with so many people involved, it'd be hard to be consistent. And I suppose we've just got to trust the people who are doing it, that they're going to do as good a job as possible. And I think it'll be really interesting to see the results and to see what comes out. If I was a teacher, I'd be really inclined to be really kind to all my students, because that's just how I am. And I wonder how many teachers are feeling like that. I think it will be really interesting to see. And that sort of brings me to the next question, which is, how do you think getting results in this way will impact how young people, or how you talk about results in the future? Because I know for me, when I'm talking about my GCSE results or A-level results, I can say, oh yeah, I didn't do as well as I should. I've got this excuse that I thought up ages ago and have stuck to for the years. But other people, when this cohort will not have that experience of having sat through that exam, it will be a different way of talking about it. So how do you think that will be affected? Does that make sense?
So like I said, I mentioned about that talking with some of my friends, and we've come up with this thing that will be known as the Corona year, the year it all went wrong. And when we get asked about it, we can just be like, yeah, we were that year. Like for my year personally, we were the year to first sit the new SATs when they came out. We were the year to first sit the new GCSEs when they came out. And then we're the year to have our A-levels cancelled, the only year probably ever to have that situation upon us. So we've been quite unlucky coming up in like our year group. Luckily we're a low year group, low birth year, so it's not affected the number of people it probably could have, but it'll just be another thing to add to that list. So like when I talk about my GCSEs, we were like, oh, I got 6, 7, and we were unsure what that would mean when we went to different places, and they go, oh, how many A's to C's did you get? And we're like, well, we didn't get A's to C's, because we were the first year to do it's. Now, just with the same uncertainty we had about that, we have how our exams are going to be taken, because when we apply for something, they'll know that we were that year group, because they'll have it like on records. So it'll be really interesting, and I'm unsure how it'll be taken, but I'd like to think they'd hold the same weight, because it's not our fault. I know there was a I don't know whether it was true, but there was a rumor that we were going to get 30% of our grades knocked down. I don't know whether you heard that. Yeah, we were going to get 30% knocked off, because for whatever reason, there was a petition on change.org about trying to prevent it and get it brought back up in the Commons. But yeah, I remember posting on my Facebook, like, how is this our fault? Why are we being hindered for something that literally we can't control? We can't control what viruses are in our country. We can help stop the spread of it, and I completely understand taking us away from school to stop that spread, but we can't control that. We don't make those decisions, so why are we being hindered by it? So I'd like to think they'd hold the same way, or is that? Yeah, I think they will. That's what I'm going to say. But I don't know whether that's just me being over hopeful.
Yeah. What do you other guys think? Do you think that will have an impact on? I have a feeling that some employers it will make a difference for, and others will be good about it. But
yeah, I think depending on the industry that you end up going in, or what line of work you go into, if you're in a tight like a close call between you and another candidate, and they were, say, the year before, who sat their exams, or potentially the year after who sat their exams, and we've got the same results, and we've come and done the interview, and we've got very similar, like they like what they saw. I think they probably would lean to a more proven exam certificate, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, that's the only situation I could possibly think would affect us, like when it's really tight, which now thinking about it is probably more often than not with how with the way we're going, because everything's getting more competitive now, isn't it? Everybody wants the best things.
I think the only thing that I would say to you, Daniel, about that one, I'm quite glad I don't have to do it, but in a previous occupation, I used to do quite a bit of interviewing people for jobs. And what I'm going to say is probably a little bit controversial, but hey, the fact that you've got different exam results says could be all sorts of things, because two people could be very similar, but one could have good exam technique, one could have just find exams really difficult. Unless the job you're going for is in a really high pressured exam-like environment, then there should be lots of other mitigating things that the interview and competencies and all that sort of stuff should be taken into account. If it was me, I don't think I would ever go like that. And I would hope people like us can, in as much as we can, but people in sort of youth sectors and those who are children's advocates and young people's advocates would say this generation deserves the very best, because it isn't its fault. And you do need to be given the opportunity to show what you can do regardless of what the exam results say. And I've always said to young people when I've been doing youth work, you know, you can do the best you can do, but everybody can have a bad day. And that cannot define who you are.
Absolutely. I think it's a really important question, because even at my ripe old age, you know, I still chit chat to people about GCSEs, or for some of us who did GCs and O levels, CSEs, that we still look back on them and recall. It's a piece of information that stays in your mind, and some people ask it just out of interest, and but there's also there's almost like a backdrop about achievement and success attached to it, isn't there? Of like, how successful were you? What did you achieve? And I think that's, for me, the kind of not concern, but well, yeah, maybe it is a concern for how young people feel about themselves, and, you know, what makes up their identity. And maybe some of that is their academic success for some, and maybe all. But I think I want so very much for young people to look back on this extraordinary year of not being able to do exams, but still know that they've achieved, and still know that they're a success, and still know that when, you know, they get 20, 30 years down the line and you're having a chit chat, you know, well, but when you were back at school, how well did you do? So you say, well, do you know what, even against all the odds, I got these grades, even though I wasn't able to sit my exams. And it's a sense of, I want young people to move forward knowing that they've achieved and knowing that they're successful, in however, you know, they've navigated these years of school when they've not been in, whether that's in year 10, 11, 12, 13, but also, you know, for those who are transitioning from year 6 into 7 as well, and how you know, we've talked about that already on this, in this context. But I think that there's the underpinning of feeling like you've done your best and achieved, and you're not defined by those pieces of paper, and your success and your achievements in life go much broader than that.
Yeah. And I think this is an opportunity as well, Susie, to change that narrative of achievement. When achievement is, oh, what have you achieved, what have you achieved, what have you achieved? And all through our school life, we are told, you need to achieve this, you need to achieve better, you need to make your progress, you need to at least achieve this because you did this before. Well, why? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve successful results in exams that we've sat on, or in this case not sat? or are we trying to achieve the bettering of ourselves and of the community in which we find ourselves?
Yeah.
So what achievements do we want to measure as a society, and how can we do that in a more helpful way that encourages good citizenship? And we would say, and encourages faith to grow and flourish as well.
Absolutely. Can I ask a quick question? This isn't on our list. I'm being a bit cheeky here to ask this, but Daniel, how has your faith impacted you over this time? How has that been a support, and to navigate this time?
I'm just going to talk personally for a couple of minutes. Like, for me, it's been different is the word I'd use. I don't think it's been harder or easier than life has gone before. There's been many different factors that affect how difficultly I found life. But I was saying this to my curate a couple of weeks back now. I was like, one of the things that keeps me going is my faith, and the fact that when I'm going through a difficult or tough time, my faith doesn't get hindered too bad. And I think I'm quite lucky in that regard, because I'm sat here like, yeah, I'm finding it tough right now, but this wasn't how God intended it to be. And this dark patch where I can't see where I'm going, or I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, I know that there is one, because God didn't intend for life to be I can't say the word that came into my head then, but he didn't intend for it to be like that. And he just he wants the best for us. He's got a plan for us. He's got a plan to prosper us and not to harm us. The Bible says that quite explicitly, and that's one of the things that's kept me going. And I do worry for people who don't have that strong faith, or people whose faith is can fluctuate from time to time, because I feel like this time could be a lot harder for people who don't have that security in a loving Father.
Thank you. Thanks. Sorry, Johnny.
No, don't be sorry. That was a great question. I think we should ask that every young guys on here. It's really interesting to find out. And also, it's interesting to reflect on that and reflect on my own faith as a result of how other people have experienced this and how I found it as well. And I suppose related to that and building on that is, how can youth leaders and other adults who are in our lives support us at this time if we're young people, or how can we support young people we know if we are the adults? Liz, can I come to you for that one first of all? Because
you can. It's really interesting because one of my children is about to go into year 11. And we've already started having some of the conversations in preparation for that unknown. And I think one of the biggest things is actually taking a bit of time to talk about how young people feel and the things that they're worried about, their concerns, and also a little bit about, and I guess preparing for thinking of Daniel for getting your results next week, and where you want the adults that are in your life to be on those particular days, how they can help. And there's been a little bit with me talking, because my child's a little bit nervous around what's going to happen in year 11. Is a bit of keeping perspective, and a little bit about what I said before, because regardless of what happens, I think there are still doors that are opening. And I think the thing that I find the hardest is, I've heard on occasions, I did some youth work a few years ago. A young man that was in the group was waiting for his GCSEs, and he'd taken the exams. And we had this conversation, and he was really quite worried. He said, I'm really worried that I'll let my parents down. And he'd gone to a private school, and he said, they've paid all this money for my education. And I remember saying to him, I don't think they would want you to feel that stress. on top of everything else. So a big thing for me is actually being realistic and having a bit of perspective around it is really important, but it is not the be all and end all. And whatever happens next week or today or the week after, there are lots of options. And I think it's really important for the adults to be adults and to support the young person and put the young person first. That would be my hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go for it, Daniel.
Sorry. Yeah. No. I just wanted to second that, because I think throughout my life, my parents have been great, because whenever a big situation like this come up, they'd always say to me, and I can. It always felt corny at the time, but they'd always go, whatever the situation, just know that we love you, and whatever happens, that we're going to support you. And every time they'd say it, I'd roll my eyes and go, yeah, Mum, I know what you mean. But as much as I may have rolled my eyes at it at the time, like even like now when they're still saying it, like I'd probably end this call and I'd go into the other room and they'd probably say it. But I know they mean it. And even if even if I switch off sometimes because I've heard it 1,000 times, just having that assurance that the adults around me are going to support me no matter what is that sense of comfort. Like you were saying, that guy who was really nervous, I've been through that, and to feel like to have all that pressure on you. Like I wrote little thank you cards to all my teachers when I left this year, the people who've been through it, and I think I put nearly all of them, like I'm sorry I can't give you the opportunities to make you proud. And that's one of the things I think we've lost. We've lost the sense of pride in our results because we haven't taken them. And in the same way, kind of like what I was saying before about that pressure of like letting people down, because we haven't taken them. I feel like even though it's not our fault, some people feel like they are letting themselves down because they haven't had that opportunity to express themselves in an exam. So I'd say to all parents and youth workers, anyone who may listen to this, is in the strongest way to support your young people is to give them that assurance that they are still human beings, regardless of what letters, numbers, signatures, signals, red light, yellow, whatever they're going to put on those papers, because we just don't know at this point. Whatever comes up on those papers, at the end of the day, it's a piece of paper, and like Liz was saying, results don't define you. It's the characters that are within you that make you who you are. I saw a comment from the live stream. Somebody put, "What I achieve is not as important as the person I become," and that was a quote from Shidin Boise. I don't think I pronounced that right, but it was a quote, and I think that rings true.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, Andy put that on. Thank you for sharing that, Andy.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I think it's so important because we don't, in so much of this pandemic, we don't have answers, and we're all, no one's ever written a how to do youth work in a pandemic book, and we don't know, what's happening one week to the next. But in the midst of it, I think you both hit the nail on the head, and I think just making space for people to react and respond in the way that's supportive and create space to young people to talk and for there to be space to listen. And I think often we're quick to try and find strategies and answers to the situations, but actually I think this is a period of time when different results will create different emotions and different feelings and different futures, and I think just making time and space to talk and to be heard and to express all of those feelings, which are all genuine and authentic and need to be felt, I think is, and just accompanying the young people that we have the privilege of working with through that is, I think, one of the most important things that we can do at this time. And I think that those are the kind of tough times that when you've built relationships with young people, and there's that good bond between kind of parents and children and youth worker and young people, and that when you hit these really tricky times, that you've got people around you who are for you regardless. And I think this is the time when, well, all the time we're for you, but to make some space for you to hear your results and respond, and go and buy a bag of Haribo, give you a ring, do the chat it through, and celebrate as well, and making space for there to be times to celebrate as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and in many ways this is no different to usual results. You might take a bit more time and to listen to the story of how you've got here, but actually hearing Daniel say he doesn't feel like he can take pride in his results, that tells us how important it is to celebrate. We would celebrate with great gusto, no matter how well or poorly people do. Really, we celebrate that we're finished and we're ready on to the next go, and we end well to move on well. So I think it's really important that we remember as youth leaders, and if we're parents as well, that this is an opportunity for celebration.
Yeah,
what happens, to say you've done this is, and to put that marker in the sand for the next journey. And because of the lack of pride that people are feeling, and because of the sense of, oh, I didn't achieve this is just something that is on a piece of paper, that seems to be coming across anyway. No, this is something you have achieved. You have done this. Just because you missed out on 4 months or five months doesn't negate the previous 12 years or so, or whatever it is that you've put in. You've worked all of that time for it. You have earned it. I think we need to make sure we shout that loudly from the rooftops.
Mike North has said that too on the live stream. The legend of that is Mike North has said that let's have opportunities to celebrate young people, just because of the amazing people that they are.
I think it's good to keep perspective though, because with every unexpected great achievements, there will be people who are going to be disappointed with what they see, and because it's not it. I feel like if I get results that I'm like, so if this happened to me, I don't know whether this will be for all young people, but if I go on next Thursday and I get results that I don't think represent me and how hard I've worked, I'm going to be even more disappointed than I would be if I'd sat those exams, because it's been taken. My chance to do it has been taken away from me, and somebody said this is what he's been working at, and I feel like that's unlike other results days where people have sat exams and have not come out as they'd wanted to. I think this is going to be even harder because they haven't. If I've done the best I can in the exam and it comes out not what I wanted, that's happened to me. I resat some from my coursework and I came out with less than I originally did, and even though I worked 2 times harder than the first time I did it, I got half the marks, which baffled in my head. I broke down about it, and I think this is going to be even harder for those people who don't get the results that they may need to push on to their desired course or whatever. So like Caesar was saying, to give them even more time than you'd expect them to, because not only do they have to get over the fact that the results aren't what they needed, but the fact that it's not their fault that they haven't been able to achieve those grades. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, thank you. We need to come into land in a moment, and I'm going to ask you for your 1-minute answers to my last question. What Susie referred to that Mike has said in the group chat about having reward nights and celebratory nights for who young people are, not their academic achievements. Really, really important. And we can do that throughout the year as well. Make sure that we can do that at Christmas time, we can do that at Easter, we can do that at this time, to reinforce the message that actually it's who we are that matters more than apparent achievements. Our final question, and we want this to be sort of hopeful, looking forwards, because just as you get results and that's not the end, and just as the coronavirus is here but it's not the end, there is something beyond. So what are you looking forward to in the next academic year? And there's still some uncertainty, obviously, but we still have stuff to look forward to as well. So what are you looking forward to in the next academic year? Susie's having a ponder, thinking carefully. I'm just going to have a, what am I going to look forward to in the next academic year? I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to in the next academic year, and then you guys can go. Mine, well, we're hoping in our diocese to start a youth voice. So we're going to hear from young people about their thoughts and feelings about the runnings of the church and what changes we could make, and the ideas that we have, sharing them and hearing their ideas so that we can suit them, change them and suit them accordingly to move forward. So I'm really excited about that happening because I've been wanting that to happen for years. So that's happening this academic year, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Who would like to go next? We've got 1 minute each, possibly less than.
I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some changes in that we value the young people for who they are in a rounded way, rather than just academic results. And that for me is something that we really need to aim for. And as the church, we need to proclaim that, because actually who you are is more important than what a piece of paper says you've done.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to, and this is looking maybe not into this as much into the next academic year, but looking much further than that. I'm looking forward to seeing how well people do despite these situations, so that sense of pride can come back and saying, like you were saying earlier, Susie, despite everything that's been thrown against me, look what's become of us as a year group, and that starts next year. Those building blocks start from like September, whenever those new years start. So that's what I'm looking forward to, because I think as my year group and the year 11s and 10s and 12s, though that's going to be some really proud moments looking back at our lives when everything was thrown against us, look what we've achieved. I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Amazing.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how Daniel gets on his next year. I'm very excited for him and what he's going to be up to. And I'm also looking forward to seeing how we can really embark on well-being as something positive and something that isn't a reactive thing. I think it's going to be a big thing to focus on over the next few months, not just for young people, but for teachers and leaders and clergy and all over the place. And I'm really hopeful that out of that focus on well-being, people will begin to feel okay and feel able to talk and feel able to express their feelings a bit more about how they're really doing. And I'm looking forward for creating really exciting ways of giving people space to just chat about how they're doing, because I think that's really important. And it needn't be a negative reactive thing, mental well-being, but a really positive proactive thing, where we can help support each other a bit more.
Thank you, Susie. Daniel, in one sentence, can you tell us what you're doing next year, and then we're going to close after that?
So yeah, I've just finished year 13, so I'm going to be doing the New Wine Discipleship Year, for those of you who know what that is. And basically that means I'll be doing some training in St. Philip's in Salford, and I'll be working as part of the clergy in my church that I've grown up in. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Brilliant. That's wonderful. And just as we come to the land with about 30 seconds to go, Daniel, again, please could you pray for us?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Lord, thank you that you give us the opportunity to talk about these really difficult topics in a really strange time that we're all facing. Lord, I pray that you'll be with all the students who are going to be collecting the results, whether that's today in Scotland or next week in England. I pray that what they see will show the level of work they put in for however many number of years they've been working at it. But also, Lord, I pray that you'll be with those who don't get the results that they feel that they may deserve, and just give them a sense of purpose and your love, so they know that it doesn't define them, and that their lives aren't hindered by 1 or 2 letters or numbers on a piece of paper, that you have a plan for them, and that will not be stopped by what some people say that they're working at in an academic sense. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Liz and Daniel, particularly Daniel, for joining us today. It's been great to hear your insights and thoughts. Next week, we'll be having another little reflection for you to look at. And the week after, we'll be back again for a conversation. We'd love to see you here live with us. I'm not sure who's hosting that, but it's all to be found out. Maybe you'll get a little advert like you had today. You'll be lucky. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.